Test, test. Starting. Starting. Awesome. All right. I think I'm live. And hopefully today you'll be able to hear me. My mic wasn't working when I tried this yesterday. My name is Nirmal Singh, and I want to thank you for joining me today. And I'd like to start by asking you a question. What would your life look like if it was filled with purpose, compassion, and joy? So just spend a moment with that. Because most men I know feel really stressed, really anxious, overwhelmed, stuck. And so, again, I invite you to spend a moment first, reflect where are you at right now, and then imagine this other version of yourself, this vision of your best future self filled with purpose, compassion, and joy. I'd like to now move on and talk a little bit about my story as it relates to what I'd like to share with you today around moving from stuck to stable with my path of the humble lion. And my story begins about 20 years ago where I was at a pivotal point in my life. I had been 20 years in my corporate job, in my advertising career, wife, two kids, and then it all fell apart. Marriage, done. Maybe one of the blessings in that very difficult time for me was an introduction to a Kundalini yoga practice. That was awesome. But a few years later, my corporate job, done. 20 years, done. I don't know, as I reflect on it now, of course, I have perspective, but at the time I may not have realized this, but clearly there was something that wasn't working between my advertising career, which is, to put it, mildly, about manipulating people, and this perhaps spiritual connection or awakening that was starting to develop within me. Those might not have been a very good fit. Nonetheless, I thought, my career up to that point in time moved very smoothly. I was certainly in a flow in that world. And I thought, yeah, no problem. I'll just remake myself in the wellness world and helping others. I mean, what could be wrong with that? I mean, that would be awesome, right? Well, shouldn't take long. Wrong. Nothing I tried worked. I was stuck for years. It was like butting my head up against the wall. What did I realize? Well, nothing's handed to you, and that might not have been new. But this also just wasn't just about working hard because I felt I worked pretty hard. No, I realized in time that this was about what I needed to know about myself. This was about getting to know me and what was important to me. And over the years that followed, I had, the good fortune to work with some awesome teachers and mentors floating into my life, both in the yoga and in the recovery worlds, including the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, which some of you might know of. And in that process, I learned a lot about myself and how to support others. Pardon me. Got a bit of a cold here. Learning how to support others as a teacher, Kundalini Yoga teacher and a trainer, a Beyond Addiction teacher and a trainer, and a compassionate inquiry practitioner, which is Gabor's work, and as a transformation coach focusing on working with men. And over the years, I was able to distill this down to, what I found ultimately working for me in an approach I call the stable method involving 6 steps. And this is what I'd like to walk you through today. So I'll pause for a moment and ask you, if you would, to grab a pen and paper or whatever else you might be able to take some notes down with, maybe it's your phone. And I'd like you to write stable out, Stable. This is what I'd like to introduce to you now. All right, so let's start with the S in stable, which stands for stress. Okay, it's everywhere, right? And everyone has some. And a little, of course, is okay. In fact, it's probably very important for us in order to keep that nervous system, stimulated to a degree, but in a manageable way, right? So my question is, How do you manage it though? Because for many of us, maybe it goes off the rails. Think about, when life is blowing up, family is blowing up, work is blowing up. Well, I can tell you what my response is typically over time. It's been freeze. So fight, flight, freeze, that stress response, freeze. I'm stuck. And what happens? Well, I can't think, right? I can't access my prefrontal cortex. So what do? Well, what I discovered is that if I can engage with a breath, a long, deep breath, or a particular breath practice that might be built from that, then I can regulate my system. And I'd like you to spend a few minutes with me right now just engaging with a very simple breath practice that may actually do something for you as it does for me. It's called Sitali breath, and it's a long breath in terms of it's like about 4 seconds in and 4 out, and I'll guide you through that. But the trick is here, it's through the mouth on the inhale, but with the tongue extended and rolled. Inhaling through the rolled tongue and exhaling through the nose. Now, about a third of the population can't roll their tongue. That doesn't matter. So then, if that's you, then you just stick your tongue out and inhale your breath over the tongue, exhale still through the nose. And let's do this together for a minute or two. Okay, let's begin. Inhale. Exhale through the nose. If you can think of some problematic situation in your life, you might want to be present with that and see how this might be affected by this breath. Inhale again through the through the rolled tongue. Exhale through the nose. And again, I'd like you to just engage with how you're feeling internally. All right, now just spend a moment and notice how you feel. I really buy this maxim that we have in our practice that says the mind follows the breath and the body follows the mind. And what's that say to me? Well, it means that whatever it is that's going on in my mind that's causing me to feel unsteady, dysregulated, that I can actually affect that with my breath because the mind follows the breath. I slow my breath down and I take in this very cooling breath, particularly if I'm angry. That cools my system down physically, but also emotionally. So breath can be very, very powerful. So that's the first piece that I'd like to share with you. Second is the T in stable that stands for trauma. Gabor Mate, who I mentioned earlier, says this. He says that trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside you as a result of what happens to you. Oh, okay, interesting, because same event, different responses for different men. Isn't that interesting, right? So how we individually respond, we've learned to respond like it's an adaptation. When we're triggered, this is what helped us survive in the moment when we were young, right? That helped us survive. So really important, really valuable to us. The problem is later in life, when we might be facing similar triggers or a perceived threat, not a real threat, in fact, as we might have faced when we were little, the response is identical and it's on autopilot. It's a habit that's been formed and ingrained for many, many years. All right. So what do we do about that? I'll share right now that the thing that I get triggered about very easily is fear. Fear of what? Fear of the unknown. So my ability to trust and move forward, without actually being able to calculate that it's going to be a success. It's about taking a chance. And, I've done a lot of work on exploring what is behind that, underneath that, and I think I'm getting better at it. But anyway, there's just, one example. So let me just spend a moment and ask you, how is it that you get triggered? Do you know what it is that might be triggering to you? A particular situation that shows up, an individual or a circumstance? And the question is, okay, so now that I've even noticed that, well, what do I do about that? Well, the first part is very importantly to notice. And can you notice how it's showing up in your body? Because if I can notice that before it becomes a full-on thing, then I can have the wherewithal, the will to press my pause button and then do something about that. And so again, this is the work that I work with clients is first noticing as it's stirring, not when it's full blown expressed, but it's stirring. So it might be a physical sensation or an emotion. And as that's starting to come up, and we get better at this with practice, we learn to press our pause button and regulate. And for me, it might be, because I've been working on it for a long time, just taking a breath when I notice that before I respond. I've also taken the opportunity to just simply excuse myself from a situation, and I've shared that with some clients. And it works too. It's like, I got to go to the bathroom. And you get up and you leave the space. You settle your system, pulling whatever that tool is out of your toolbox, that works for you. And then you come back and you resume. Anyway, so that's just one way that you might be able to respond to this. So again, I'll pause for a second here and just ask you to sit with that for a moment and think of how it is then when you're triggered, this shows up in your body, physical or emotional. All right. Okay, now we're going to do A in stable, which stands for authentic communication. Yes, of course, this involves speaking your truth. And that's very often not the words that men are supposed to say, right? Because that's not perhaps how we were brought up. However, you can see that when I don't actually speak what I'm feeling, that creates a break from my authenticity. There's a disconnect there. I'm not speaking in a conscious way. And that conflict can keep me stuck. There are some, awesome tools around. One that I use and work with others with is nonviolent communication. That's a great one. But I'd like to actually talk about another issue that comes up around authentic communication, an important one, and that's our self-talk. And how does that show up for me? Well, when I make a mistake, it might be, Nirmal, you're so stupid, with attitude too, right? That might be swimming around in my head. And it may not even be something I'm conscious that I'm saying because I've said it over and over again. It's the script going on in the background. Wow, like a silent mantra, like how detrimental could that be? I don't even notice much of the time, right? And yes, it's important to kind of understand where that might come from. It might have something to do with, again, early childhood stuff where your parents treated you terribly, like calling you stupid, and that's what's showing up now when you make a mistake, right? Or telling you might amount to nothing, and then what do? Then you just put yourself down, again, consciously or unconsciously perhaps, throughout your adult life. And it's not true, any of it, but it's a belief that we have created for ourselves and that we hang on to. So what do you do about that? Well, one of the things that I like to work with myself and with some others is, think about what that is that's showing up in that moment and then flip the script. So it's, yes, about noticing it first. And if I notice, Nirmal, you're so stupid, it's an opportunity for me to then say, no, Nirmal, you're smart. You're just new at this and you're learning. And repeat it. Nirmal, you're smart. You're just new at this and you're learning. It's okay. Nirmal, you're smart. You're wise. You're new at this though, and you're just learning, and it's okay to make mistakes. And if you were to say that over and over and over again as a way, again, to bring your mind around to recognizing this is who you truly are and this is what you truly believe, not this nonsense, right, that's been created by my super ego, based on, old stuff. Wow, how powerful can that be? So again, I'll spend a moment right now and ask you to write down, if you think of any self-talk that you have that is negative, write it down. I'll give you again a moment to do that. All right, let's keep going here. Belonging, that's the B in stable, belonging. We're human, we're social creatures by nature. But many men, including me, tend to isolate quite easily. particularly when we have problems. When our problems show up, okay, we don't want to engage with anybody at all, right? Why is that? Well, partly because, again, as men, we were told, hey, you got to figure this out. Be a man, figure it out, right? Don't rely on others. That's weak. Figure it out. And very often we do. But there's a problem with that. And what is that? Well, firstly, where's my energy? Where's my awareness? It's all on me, and my problem at that moment. Now, what if I was to switch that energy to be outward, to be able to engage with somebody else or in a community with others when I'm feeling that way? Well, what happens is I let go of my problems in that moment. It's not about me and what's being done to me. I put myself out there for others. And that's a beautiful thing that we can do. And that's what I have belonging and community here. So know that it's very healing to be able to put yourself out there when you're stuck. And just spend a moment then and think about how it is you react when you're upset. And can you put yourself out there for others? Perhaps there might be a way to do that. So I'll give you a moment with that. And I want to share a little anecdote with you because, I'm new in this town. I've just been here a couple of years. I work from home. And so I'm not out in this community and I don't have, friends that I've grown up with or even have an adult life with or whatever. Here, I work from home and I'm fairly isolated anyway. So what my wife and I decided to do about a month ago is like, what the hell? There's a curling club down the road here. Neither of us have a particular interest in learning to curl, but it was an opportunity to join a Learn to Curl program and what? Engage in community. And it's been awesome. We do this once a week now. We're still in the middle of this Learn to Curl program. People we are engaging with are great. And people in the curling community, if any of you happen to know anything about this, they like to socialize too. So, this is a really good healing thing for me to put myself out there, to be out there. It feels really awesome. And I invite you to consider doing something like that if you're not doing anything like that already yourself. All right, moving on to L in stable. Life purpose. Okay. So let me ask you, what is it that you do now that gives you purpose, meaning, and joy? Purpose and joy. And does it take advantage of your natural skills? Or does it feel really, really, really hard, whatever it is that you do? Pardon me. Well, it took me over 20 years to figure this out, but I love doing what I do. It has much meaning for me, really charges me. And I'm using skills that I've developed over the last 20 years or so. Again, as I said, working with awesome teachers and mentors to help me help men. Help me help men. So it's not like really, really hard. Public speaking might be hard, but the other work is not hard. So let me ask you right now, are you living your purpose? And how would you even know? Well, that brings me to the E. E, which stands for essence. Essence. Okay, that's an interesting word, What does that mean, connecting with your essence? Well, for some, it might mean connecting with your soul, with your higher power, with God consciousness, but it also means connecting with your gut intelligence, that inner knowing. And I'll ask again, question, how often have you ignored your gut, gone with your head, and that's worked out well for you? Because I can tell you, for me, not very often. Probably nearly never. But there are reasons. Why is it that we lose that trust in our gut? Well, there are reasons for that. And again, perhaps it relates back to our trauma. Because Gabor Mate says we have two primary needs when we're born. Both relate to safety and security. And it just doesn't apply to us. It applies to the entire animal kingdom, right? From eons ago. And the first is attachment to your primary caregiver. Who's that? Mom, right? And otherwise, if you weren't attached there and you were in the wild, you'd be dead, like within a day. But the other is to your gut, to your authenticity, to your intuition, right? And again, if you weren't there and trusting that, you would also be dead. within a day in the wild, right? I don't know. I don't know to get out of the path of this charging saber tooth, or it's just around the corner. I'd be dead, right? So that's really, really important. And for me, this inner knowing is important both on that higher self level as well as this connection to our authenticity, to our gut. And if I may, I'd like to just spend a moment and read from this from A.H. Almaas, this awesome book, The Diamond Heart, this great spiritual teacher. And this particular quote really strikes me powerfully. And he says this, he says, "The problematic situations in your life are not chance or haphazard. They're specifically yours, designed specifically for you by a part of you that loves you more than anything else. The part of you that loves you more than anything else has created roadblocks to lead you to yourself. Without something pricking you in the side saying, 'Look here, this way,' you're not going to go in the right direction. The part of you that designed this loves you so much that it doesn't want you to lose the chance. It will go to extreme measures to wake you up, and it will make you suffer greatly if you don't listen. What else can it do? That is its purpose. That is its purpose." Wow. So this actually, this piece speaks to me on so many different levels around, what this means to me. Again, recognizing that this part of us, this part of consciousness that we have here, recognizes, that we're here for a purpose. That life purpose, whatever that might be, it absolutely includes your life lessons. And that part of me doesn't want me to lose the chance to learn and to grow. Here's another thing that Almaas says, if I may share quickly. He says, when you have an issue in your life, the point is not to get rid of it. The point is to grow with it. The point is not to resolve the issue. The point is to grow through resolving the issue. So I'd like to thank you for giving up this part of your time to be with me, and I thank Stephen again for this opportunity, pardon me, on the Forge Nan Gathering online work that's been going on over the last week or so. And I'd like to share with you then, if you'd like to get a little deeper into, or at least even see, once again, this stable method, what that might be about. There'll be information in links that in the comments or somewhere I know where you'll be able to find that. Hey, and if you want to have a free Unstuck session with me, by all means, you can reach out to me the same way and we'll do it. So again, thank you so much. Have a great day.